strides, his stride savage and heavy like a beast, purposeful, never paused, went in under that terrible roof. Face deathly, he was groaning, muttering, he was a crazed beast, a wounded lion that's going to die, killing. His eyes bulged, demented, blazing with all that torment inside him. Mad grimaces kept wrenching his face, sweat poured on his temples and neck, froth stood round his mouth, his hands kept griping at his stomach. He was trying to tear himself open, to gouge out the bowels and liver and heart, the whole mass of agony. He was toiling for something, some action, something unthinkable, something to answer all that has happened. He began to shout, "Why delay it? I should be stabbed! I should be burned alive! I should be smashed under a rock! There should be animals ripping me to pieces! Tigers, eagles, ripping me with their hooks! Get them on! You, mountain! You began it all! It's your slope should have had my carcass! Your wild dog should have cracked my riddles for me! Where are your wolves? And that woman who wrenched her husband's head off on your lovely grass, wrenched it off and ran with it, send her agave! Why be afraid of death? It's nothing. Am I afraid? Death. It's only death can keep a man innocent. Then he pulled out his sword and he was going to kill himself, but he stopped. He began to reason. One little jab of pain, a few seconds of death, in my eyes and in my mouth, can that pay for a lifetime like mine? Can one stroke cut all my debts off? One death, that's for your father, that's good, but what about your mother? And what about that doubled blood in your children? What about their shame? And what about thieves, all the dead, all those living with their deaths on them? They are doing your penance for you, Oedipus! And you cannot pay, you cannot possibly pay, not in this lifetime. You need to be born again, suffer for everything again, and die again, over and over, lifetime after lifetime, every lifetime a new sentence and length of penalties. Think! Death can come only once. Think! This death has to last, has to be slow. Find a death that can still feel and go on feeling a life in death. A death among the living. Why are you hesitating, Oedipus? Suddenly he began to weep. Everything that had been torment, suddenly it was sobbing. It shook his whole body and he shouted, "Is weeping all I can give? Can't my eyes give any more? Let them go with their tears, let them go! Eyeballs shoot everything out! Is this enough for you, you frozen gods of marriage? Is it sufficient? Are my eyes enough?" He was raging as he spoke. His face dropped dark red. His eyeballs seemed to be jumping in their sockets, forced out from the skull. His face was no longer the face of Oedipus, contorted like a rabid dog. He had begun to scream, a bellowing animal, anger, agony tearing his throat. His fingers had stabbed deep into his eye sockets. He groped them, ripping the eyeballs, and he tugged, twisting and dragging with all his strength till they gave way. And he flung them from him. His fingers dug back into his sockets. He could not stop. He was gibbering and moaning and saying in his fury against himself, gouging, scrabbling with his nails in those huge holes in his face. "The terrors of the light are finished for Oedipus!